Palestine is a narrow strip of land between the sea and the desert, close enough to be controlled by, historically, by two river-fed lands that support larger populations and always had empires in them, but not close enough to be assimilated into these empires and completely absorbed. So again, it was not a coincidence that the idea of monotheism found root in Palestine, because the political implication of it was to deny the divinity of kings. And it is not a coincidence that this narrative of monotheism is related to two figures of political refugees that had a contest with the kings of Iraq and Egypt, Abraham from Iraq and Moses from Egypt. And it's not by coincidence that earlier than that narrative, the narrative that precedes that narrative, where you have stories like the flood, comes from Iraq and is embodied in this epic of Gilgamesh, where there is a rebellion against the divinely ordained death, against tyranny that claims divinity, that claims infallibility and impunity. My interest in rewriting Gilgamesh comes from personal and general tragedy. It's my response to personal loss, and it is also my attempt, as the attempt of many, to use writing as a form of self-defense and a form of survival. So Gilgamesh is also first written almost 2 millennia before Homer's Iliad and Odyssey. And the standard version precedes Homer's work with at least 1 millennium. The earliest texts were in Sumerian, but the standard text is in Akkadian, the language of ancient Babylon and Assyria. That language is one of the closest Semitic languages to modern Arabic. Even the grammar, syntax is the same, many cognates are the same. Anyone who understands standard Arabic can understand full passages in Akkadian. So a rewriting of the epic in verse is something that is due, I think, in Arabic. Like in the works of many narrative poets, Homer's Iliad and Odyssey, Shakespeare's plays, the stories themselves exist before the poetic rendition of them, yet the poetic rendition claims the story as its own. This happened to Gilgamesh itself, as we know it existed before the priest Sin Laqi Uninni, the Babylonian priest, collected them in the 2nd millennium BC, but it is his rendition that we now know from archaeology as the most complete. And what I have done to that Akkadian rendition is similar to what Sin Laqi Uninni did to the previous renditions, whether in Sumerian or in Akkadian, or what any narrative poet would do to pre-existing stories. The narrative, therefore, that you will hear here at Oxford is mine, though the events are not. This is also an attempt to revive the form of the epic. Few people today can experience a full epic in verse. Most epics are experienced as prose translations, and Gilgamesh itself has more archaeological translations than literary ones, where the importance of the poem comes from its old age, and it is revered because it is old. I think it should be revered because it's a poem, it's a great poem, and it should be given its due as such. It's, again, not by coincidence that it comes from Iraq. It's not by coincidence that Gilgamesh, as he seeks eternity and fights against mortality, moves west towards the Levant. And it is not by coincidence that we are telling it today as we are facing genocide in Palestine and as we have been facing mass death in the entire region for decades now. This is an attempt to rebel against divinely ordained death, or to claim that it is not divinely ordained.